Good morning, third graders. You have an assignment on seesaw, which has been assigned to you, but I wanted to give you a little bit of an explanation about this. We've been talking about organisms and their survival. We took a look at fossils and we saw how those organisms possibly went extinct. And oftentimes that extinction happened because of change in the environment. That change in the environment made it so that those organisms couldn't survive. For example, when we looked at the woolly mammoth, we know that the woolly mammoth was perfectly adapted for surviving in a cold Arctic environment, Arctic habitat. And so as we watched that happen, we saw that happen, that after the Ice Age, it started to warm up and became too warm. Their food might have died out that they were relying on, or they just simply overheated because of too much fur. We talked about those things, and a primary example is that an organism goes extinct because it can't change as the environment changes. What we're going to take a look at today is plants and animals that are living right now, and we're going to look at the different habitats, and we're going to see how they would thrive in a habitat where they thrive. That means that they survive really well. They get all of their needs met with food, water, shelter, if it's an animal, and with a plant, it is sun, soil, water, space, those kind of pieces. Some plants do really well and need plenty of light, extra light. Some do better with shade. You could have it happen right around your house. You could plant one plant and they could be the same exact plant. One of the things I'm thinking of is hostas around your house. A hosta is just this big leafy plant. Some places you might have big amounts of the hostas. The hostas might grow real well. Other places it might look tiny and stunted, that's what we call it, and it looks smaller, and it could just be a matter of closeness to the house. It might help keep it sheltered more and keep it a little bit warmer so it grows a little bit better. So let's take a look at some organisms here. I've got some right on here. One of the things that we're going to take a look at is, you guys have the gray wolf that you're going to do on seesaw, but I'm going to give you an example here. And so tall grasses is our organism. Let's move in a bit more so they can see that, and then back out. So we've got tall grasses. And then one of the other things I look at here is I see they're all distributed to these parts of the globe in the dark part. And then when I look at this picture, I remember when I go and I think back, I'll put this up here so you can see it. Way back here are 5 different habitats. So we see that picture, the grasslands. So that's a reminder of the grasslands. Let's take a look at, review the other habitats real quick. We've got the desert, ocean. We saw the grassland, we're going down. Forest. Now remember, that forest could be forests around here with us, or even rainforests, and the Arctic. In addition, there are other habitats you could probably think about, and we can see them right here. These are our habitats. Antarctic, which is basically Arctic up here to the north, Antarctic south. Desert we saw in there, forest. Freshwater, different than the ocean. That's like our lakes and our ponds. Grassland, mountain, and ocean. Now mountain habitat, we'll see. I might find one later on, but over here, look at. That's what they mean with the mountains, so that way you can kind of see there's clues right there. So, tall grasses. Tall grasses thrive in the blank habitat. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to look and I'm going to think about what habitat. Well, then I'm going to go back up to my picture here. That was the grassland. Well, tall grasses should live in the grassland. It's kind of in the name. So right here in this blank, I'm going to write grassland. And since I use that, I'll cross it out. So you're only going to use each one once. Tall grasses would survive not as well. Now they're going to survive, but it's not going to be as good as it is in that grassland. Well, grasslands tend to be dry. Maybe if we had a little bit wetter of a desert. But I'm thinking, yeah, that forest. Because there are tall grasses in the forest around, or on the edges of the forest. So there aren't a lot of tall grasses, but they're there. They would survive. Tall grasses would die in, well, they need it warm. They need decent weather. Ooh, I got to cross out forest because I use it. So you're only going to use 3. You have 8 to choose from. So back to this question. Tall grasses would die in the blank habitat. I think they would die definitely in the Arctic. It's just too cold. And so that's what you're going to do. You have to think of a habitat where the organism, the plant or the animal, would thrive, which means grow really, really well. Survive not as well. They're going to make it, but they might not grow as big or as tall or be as many of that animal in that area, for example. And they would definitely die in the Arctic. And so I'm going to go to another one. I'm going to look at the emperor penguins. With the emperor penguins, I know with penguins. Penguins, beyond all, they occupy right here, the Antarctic. And so I know wattles of penguins thrive in the Antarctic habitat. Wattles of penguins would survive not as well in the, well, if they would survive in the Arctic. And the reason why they survive in the Arctic, there's land here. They couldn't go up to the regular Arctic because there's no land up there. It's all ice, and they need that land for their nesting. But they might be able to get food, but maybe not produce as many baby penguins. So the Arctic. Wattles of penguins would die in the blank habitat. They like the cold. They would die in the desert. It's just too hot there. So that's what we're thinking about with these. Let's take a look. Look at this. So, pods of orcas. Look at there. What is all of this right here in black? It's all the oceans. Pods of orcas thrive in the ocean habitat. So, ocean. Pods of orcas would survive not as well in the... Now, I know they go to the areas around the Antarctic and the Arctic, but they aren't going up on land. They have to be in the water just because of their body size and body shape. So they might, for a bit, be able to survive not as well in the freshwater habitat. Pods of orcas would die if they went to any of the land habitats. So they would die in the forest habitat for sure because they can't walk on land. They are adapted for aquatic life. Aquatic, ocean, or freshwater. They have to be water. Aquatic means water. All right, one more, and then I wish you luck. The sugar maple. The sugar maple, right there, right around here. And so, most of the time, the sugar maple trees thrive, well, they're in the forests. So they would thrive in the forest habitat. Sugar maple trees would not survive as well in the, I mean, they've got this picture of the mountains, but look at, the trees are down here. The trees don't go up on the side of the mountain. So they're usually lower down. So I'd say they would not survive as well in the mountain habitat. Or we could even say the grassland habitat. Because remember we talked about the grassland. There were trees on the grassland, but they were spindly, which means they didn't have the big trunks. And they would have to survive with less water because in the grassland, the water isn't there as much. Sugar maple trees would die in the, well, they would die in the desert habitat. It's too dry. Or they would die even in the ocean habitat because hey, that's too much water. And so that's what you're going to look at today. Some organisms thrive and survive in a lot of different habitats. I can think of like a red fox. They can live in a forest, they can live in a grassland, they can live in a swamp, they can live in a variety of different ones because they have a lot of adaptations that help them go from one habitat to the next. Now, others are very limited. I think about like koalas, very limited because they only eat eucalyptus. And so they're very limited to that eucalyptus forest. And so that's where this idea comes in of survival. Thrive, survive really, really well. Survive not as well. They could make it because the things are there, but not totally. And die completely, they don't have any adaptations to survive in that. So you've got 3 animals to look at on Seesaw and answer 3 questions for each one, just like the ones I demonstrated there. All right, guys, have fun with this, and I hope to hear from you soon. Bye.